Hey friends, welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. We're going to make this super cute and easy Easter tulip wreath today. Hello crafty friends, come on in. Okay, so what we're going to make today is a grapevine tulip and Easter bunny springy Easter wreath. Let me show you some of the things that we're going to be using. This is a grapevine base that is 13 inches in width and 15 inches in length. I've also grabbed several bushes of tulips. These are from Michael's. I'm not sure how many we're going to be using, friends, so we'll figure that out as we go. I've also got this really cute Easter bunny cutout that I actually made myself from a wooden Easter bunny blank. The blank came from Amazon. And this is actually just scrapbook paper that I Mod Podged on, let dry, sanded the edges, and then gave a couple of coats of Mod Podge on the top to keep it weather sealed. And then I hot glued on 2 mounting brackets for our pipe cleaners that we'll be using to attach to our wreath. I've also got some wired ribbon for our bow that I'll show you in just a short bit. And then the tools that you're going to need for this wreath will be a good pair of scissors or wire snips, and your glue gun and glue sticks or your glue pot. A real quick note about the glue pot, friends. This is what I mean when I say glue pot. So this is actually just an 8x8 electric skillet, also that I picked up from Amazon. I'll link that below for you so you can grab one if you'd like. And I just buy Gorilla Glue sticks, cut them up with my scissors into like little nuggets, drop them in here, and then turn on the setting. It's basically a third of the way around the dial. And for me, this is just an easier way when I'm gluing a boatload of florals into a wreath or anything into a wreath to quickly add those things in and not have to continually grab my glue gun. So you just take your stem, dip it in, and then place it into your wreath where you would like. Alrighty, you'll also need a couple of pipe cleaners or some floral wire so that you can attach your bow when we get to that point. So we've got our grapevine here, and of course the first thing we need to do is clean it up a little bit. So I'm just going to take my snips and cut off anything that is loose or sticking out at an odd angle. Just give it a little trim, give it a little haircut. Doesn't have to be perfect, friends, because we are going to stuff this guy full. Boy, this is a really loose grapevine. It's going to make it tricky. Grapevines are unpredictable. Sometimes they're nicely tight. Sometimes they're too tight. Sometimes they're too loose. You just really never know what you're going to get. This one is a little bit of a hot mess. Just about there, guys. I know it looks round in the video, but it is an oval. Oh my word. Well, hopefully there's a bit of wreath left so that we can actually create today. Wow. All right, that's good enough. So just determine which side you want to be the top of your wreath or the front facing, and which you want to have for the rear facing. Basically, I just choose the flattest side to be the rear facing, just because it lays a little bit more nicely onto my or my customer's door. So the first thing we need to do, friends, is add our rabbit to the wreath so that we know exactly where we need to start and stop with our tulips. So I'm going to grab a couple of pipe cleaners or possibly some zip ties, and I'll meet you right back here. Okay, we're actually going to use these 10-inch zip ties. I feel like that will work since it's a smaller grapevine. Bear with me for one moment here, friends, while I figure out the best place to add this guy. Just trying to see where the best weave is for our floral additions. Plus we've got this really wonky larger piece here. So because we've got this bigger piece, we're going to add the rabbit to this side. You're just going to run your zip tie through your mounting bracket. And then lay your attachment where you would like it. And once you figure that out, then you can lift up your, in my case, this rabbit or your attachment, run it through, not around, through your wreath, flip it over, and then we'll get that cinched up. I might have to go around. This grapevine has a really weird weave. So generally, friends, I prefer that you go through just so that your customer doesn't really see your zip tie. But this grapevine has a really wonky weave, and so some of it's really loose, some of it's really tight. So I went through on one side and around on the inside. And you want to cinch it tight enough that it's secure, but not so tight that it's going to undo that mounting bracket. So that's nicely attached. I'm going to go ahead and trim off this excess bit of zip tie. And now we'll do the top part of our bunny. Well, we're just going to have to go around. There's just no clean bit on this grapevine, guys. Then trim off your excess zip tie. So now we've got this guy nice and attached. So our next step, friends, is going to be to add our tulips. And so my vision for this wreath, so that it's a good combination of both spring with the flowers on the bunny and the florals of the tulips, and Easter with our bunny attachment, is to have our bunny attachment here, a super cute farmhouse vibe simplistic bow here, and then our tulips running basically to meet our bunny here. And so what I'm going to do, if this were a clock, between the 10 and 8 o'clock mark, I'm going to leave this free of tulips, because this is where we'll attach our bow in just a short bit. Let's go ahead and grab our tulips here. All right, friends, I probably have, let's see, how many bushes do we have? We have 7 of these bushes. I'm not sure how many we'll use because it's a smaller wreath, and we've also got an attachment. Again, these are from Michael's. They have a tulip sale every early spring. I'm not sure if they are still on sale or not. And you would be surprised how many tulips it takes, or how many bushes it takes to fill a wreath. So just to give you an example, when I'm using a 14 or an 18 inch, typically 14 inch fine wreath, I probably go through 12 to 15 bushes when I'm filling it full of tulips all the way around. So it really does take more than what you would think. So our first step here is to prep our tulips. And so we're just going to snip off all of our tulips from this bush. And usually there's anywhere between 6 and 8. This particular bush had 7, and regardless of where you get your tulips from, friends, they usually have sliding greenery. And what I mean by that is you've got your tulip bunch on the top, and then you've got your wispy pieces of greenery, and that wispy piece will slide up. So I always push that up nearly to the top of that tulip because that greenery gives it some extra depth and dimension once we've added these all in, okay? Now, as I look at this, I can already tell now that I've pushed up the greenery, I need to trim off another 1.5 inches because our wreath is smaller and has a not so great weave. I want that stem to be about 1 inch to 1.25 inches, okay? And so once you get it trimmed down, you've cut off your tulips from the bush, you've pushed up your greenery near to the top, and you've trimmed your stem so that you've got 1 inch to 1.25 inches. The next thing you need to do is just check and make sure your tulips are attached in a sturdy way. This is a little bit of an extra step, but sometimes you get one that's not really attached well, and you sure don't want that to come off of your customer's wreath or your own wreath if it's for yourself right in the middle of its hanging season. So to check that tulip strength, just grab a tulip, give it a little bitty pull and make sure it doesn't pop off, and then set it to the side. If you reach a tulip that is not firmly attached, just plug in your hot glue gun, put a small drop of glue right on that greenery piece, the stem, and just pop that tulip back on. So what I'm going to do now is clean up probably 4 of my tulip bushes. And so by cleaning them up, that just means I'm going to trim all these guys off of the bush, push the greenery up, make sure our tulips are attached, and make sure there's 1.5 inches of stem, and set it off to the side. So go ahead and get your tulip bushes cleaned up as well, and then I'll meet you back here. Go ahead and grab your grapevine wreath so that we can start adding these tulips in. Now, let me just tell you a couple of things on how I'm going to do this. Remember, I'm going to leave this 2-inch gap right here at the 9 o'clock mark so that we can have a place to attach our bow. And I'm going to run tulips all the way to the rabbit on either side. So if you've not made a tulip wreath before, either using your glue pot or glue gun, whichever method you prefer, basically what you're going to do is add 3 tulips per row. So you'll have 1 in the center, 1 on the outer part of your grapevine wreath, and 1 on the inner. And when you add them in, you've got these bits of greenery and leaf on here. You want the leaves to be towards the back. So using your glue pot or your glue gun. All right, so we're going to run our tulips towards the bunny, going both directions. And if you've made a simple tulip wreath before, then you know that generally speaking, your tulips always go in the same direction all the way around your wreath. However, when you're adding a bow and you're running the tulips away from the bow, the stems need to go closest in, okay? And so all of the tulips coming above 9 o'clock will go one direction, and below 9 o'clock will go another. So let me just give you an example here. I'm just dipping my tulip into the glue pot. I'm not sure if that's in camera range or not. So I've got a good bit of glue. I'm going to place this in. This might be interesting, friends. This wreath has a really weird weave. So I've got 1 in the center, and then 1 on the inside, and 1 on the outside, like so. So they're facing this way, they're going at an angle, and at the lower half, below the 9 o'clock mark, they're going to go in the opposite direction. So we'll be putting them in, we'll be dipping into the glue or running your bead of glue on there, and then going the opposite direction to really leave room for your bow. So what I want you to do now, friends, is just take some time and get your tulips loaded into your wreath. Remember, it's 1, 2, 3. So 3 per row, working your way to the rabbit. And I'll meet you back here once we get a little bit closer to that rabbit attachment. All right, friends, I'm pretty happy with the placement of our upper level of tulips. It's nice and full. They're going one direction. It's equally spaced and placed. And so what I'm going to do now is go down to the bottom half. And we may be putting one more row in here, to be determined. So when you're doing the bottom, start closest towards the bunny and work your way in. You'll find it less than the way I showed you just a moment ago. So let's get our tulips loaded up in here, and then I'll meet you back here. Now that we have our tulips totally stuffed in, this is what our wreath is looking like. Fantastic. I should have put one less tulip just on this inner side so that folks could see our cute little bunny's floppy ear, but that's okay. So our next step, friends, is to make a super cute bow to add to this section, and then we'll be done. So let me grab my ribbon and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, I've grabbed some ribbon to make our bow, and I just chose something a little bit more neutral to match the colors of our wreath. Let me just pull that back in here a bit so you can see it. So I chose the burlap and white thinly striped 2.5 inch and just a plain muted yellow 1.5 inch. Both are wired, of course. I think that'll really be a cute accent piece, but yet not take away from the beauty of the tulips and the bunny attachment that we've added. I generally use a bow dabra to make my bows, but I wanted to spend some time and show you how to make a hand bow. So when you are making a hand bow, you can choose as many ribbon colors and styles as you would like. I just would recommend that you get a little bit better quality ribbon, and there's really no store or website that's, you know, just a rock solid location to get ribbon. Every retail merchant has great ribbon, and every retail merchant has gross ribbon. Just make sure you're double checking your ribbon when you purchase it. I don't generally like to use anything satiny or see-through because it's just too flimsy to make a good sturdy bow. And you always want to choose ribbon with wire so that it will hold its shape. So this is a more simple bow. I'm just using 2 different colors, but you can certainly use as many styles and colors as you would like. So let me show you how to make a hand bow. So once you've got your ribbon selected, make sure your scissors are handy and also a pipe cleaner. You could also use a clear zip tie if that's your preferred method. I bounce back and forth between the two. Just try to make sure that whatever you're choosing is close in color to your ribbon so that it's not seen as much, okay? So back to our ribbon. Most ribbon has a pretty side and a not so pretty side. So you're going to notice when we make this bow that we're going to be doing some twisting of the ribbon because you always want the pretty side to be out. Now, sometimes, not often, but sometimes ribbon is made and both sides look great. You don't have to really worry about that twisting. But generally speaking, just keep in the back of your head that when you're making a bow, the pretty side should always be out because that's what you want to see on your wreath. All right, friends, we're going to make a hand bow. So I want my tail to be about 10 inches in length, and the pieces that hang down are called tails. So fold it up and over, up and over. We'll be making 4 loops. Up and over, making sure that that pretty side is always out and that your loops are nearly the same size. It sure doesn't have to be perfect. And then once you have that made, we've got 4 loops here. Just cut off your ribbon. We're going to keep that in our hand. Don't worry about its placement just yet, friends, because we're going to tie it off and fluff it out. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with my yellow, only my tails are going to be a couple of inches shorter. And my loops will also be just a tad shorter. So I've got 4 loops and 2 tails of each of these ribbons. You can make it as full or as simple as you like. Friends, if you'd like a little bit more of a slowed down tutorial on how to make hand bows, I will attach a separate link below in the description from a previous video that I've made that walks you through at a much slower pace and step-by-step way on how to make your bows. So once you've got your ribbon stack all together, go ahead and grab your floral wire or your chenille stem or whatever you're using. Make sure everything's going in the right direction and cinch that guy up. Once you get it cinched really tight, and you want that super duper tight, give it 2 or 3 spins. I just hold it tightly with my fingers and spin the whole darn thing. And once you've got that tightly twisted up and your bow stack is secure, go ahead and take your scissors or your snips and trim off your excess bit of floral wire or pipe cleaner from your bow. Toss those away. Then I just kind of fold that down a little bit so that it's not poking. We'll fluff this bow out once we get it added. I'm just going to kind of pull on these loops since we've got 4 of each. I'm just going to take both the bottom and the top and kind of pull them into an X. But again, personal preference. You can have your bow as full or as simplistic as you like. And I'll cut these tails, trim them up once we actually get this fellow in place. I actually have just the smallest bit, it's basically a remnant of burlap or tan polka dotted 1.5 inch ribbon that I just love. But I'm actually going to see if we've got enough to just throw in a teeny tiny tail. And it's literally just a piece. This is a remnant of a roll, but I love it and it matches, so we're going to throw that in. Noticed it off to the side, and we don't need to worry that we haven't already placed it. We're just going to cinch it down with our floral wire. So with my bit, if you wanted to do this with any remnant that you have, or you could specifically cut a piece, this is probably 11 or 12 inches in length. You're just going to find that center and fold it so you know where it is. To attach our bow to the wreath, I'm actually going to use a piece of heavy gauge floral wire stem. This came from Hobby Lobby in a pretty good size pack. Forgive me, friends, I threw away the label, so I don't know the gauge, but it's pretty sturdy. I'm going to fold this floral stem in half just to make a little bit of a V so I know where the center is. And now, because we're throwing this in last minute, I'm going to see if I can run this right in the center. And then we're going to take our V, run that over the middle of your ribbon stack or your bow. And then make sure your tail that we're adding last minute is not too crinkly and it's laying nicely. Flip that over. Give it a pretty good tight twist. Just a couple of twists is all you need. We've already secured the bow with that pipe cleaner. This is just to keep this wire from getting squirrely when we attach it. And so now we've attached this floral piece to our bow, giving us 2 good sized pieces to attach this bow directly to our wreath. And so because we've got some tails in this open space, I'm going to add the wire floral stems, the floral wire nearly to the top, 3/4 to the top of this. And typically I would tell you to take these floral wire bits and push them through your grapevine so that your customers don't really see the mechanics of your wreath. We'll see if that works. Remember this, the weave on this grapevine was really not so great. Let's see if we can do that. If not, we'll run it around. Sometimes you have to improvise. Let's see how this goes. It's not going to go because it's goofy. So instead, we'll lay it where we want it. So I've got the center of my bow, probably about 1 inch below that last row of tulips. And make sure it's where I want it. Flip that guy over. Give it one tight twist because I want to make sure it didn't move on us. Nope, still sitting in a good place. So flip it back over. Really give that a really tight twist. I usually tighten that up 4 or 5 times to make sure it's really nicely attached. Trim off your floral wire bits. And then with your fingers, or in my preference, some needle nose pliers, you can pinch those ends together then so that they're married nicely, and then curl them in. That keeps them from poking you or your customer or scratching your door. So here's what our wreath is looking like, friends. It is so cute. Definitely got a really cute, springy farmhouse vibe. Just fluffing out my bows a little bit here, my loops. Fluffing out our loops. Give yourself some grace and some time with this part. This is where people get in a hurry. Determine where you want those tails to lay. You can choose to cut your tails at an angle or dovetail them. I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to just cut them at an angle, friends. That's kind of been my preference recently. And remember, you can always take more off, but you can't add it on. So cut it a little long, take a look, and give it another trim if you need to, but don't cut it too short from the get-go. I also like to cut them at different lengths so I can see all the layers peeking out. But again, that's personal preference. You can certainly do it how you'd like. Then here's our little tail that we added in. We're going to cut those at 2 different lengths just because it's cute and whimsical. All right. We have completed this really quick and easy grapevine Easter spring wreath. Now that we've got everything added in, let's take a look at our new dimensions. So it looks like this guy is 16 inches wide from end to end and about 22 inches in length. So you can see we really added a lot of depth and dimension with all of our florals. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, friends, and if you have not already subscribed to my channel and you like all things to do with door decor and wreath making, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We've got new tutorials uploading each week. And if you enjoyed this video, friends, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps my channel out and helps me to grow. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.